Hey guys, welcome to Melanin United. On this video, we're going to talk about Kenya and Tanzania. So we seen William Ruto not too long ago go on a East African tour when he went to Uganda, he went to Tanzania, and he went, where else did he go? Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and he basically just went to these other leaders in East Africa and was talking about, making more agreements and deals, cooperating together is which we need, right, to be financially independent from the Europeans. And we seen how he had Abiy Ahmed's back in the Ethiopian, what's going on in Ethiopia, how the Europeans are back in the TPLF rebels, and he has their back. And then they've made deals where Safaricom, which is Kenya's biggest mobile company or technology company, that now is going to be operating in Ethiopia, which is good. And Ruto's been basically going around East Africa and talking about unity and they need to work together and stuff. And I told you, that's why I was so excited when Ruto won presidency of Kenya. Like I said, there's some good presidents in Africa. There's a couple, and majority of them are working for the Europeans or like Chinese and stuff. But like I said, Ruto for sure is not. Abiy Ahmed, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, is not. Then you got, I think, Malawi's Dr. Lazarus Chakwara. Malawi's president is not. And then I like Zambia's president, Hashilima. Like, he's talking about anti-corruption and telling the governments there that don't use government money, which is the people's money, on your cars and stuff like that, right? Which is good, but I just don't like seeing, like, I don't know, but I just don't like seeing how the Europeans are allowing Zambia's debt to go free and all that, but other African nations are not, and how they're giving favoritism to Zambia. So they don't do that for no reason. So I'm wondering what's going on there. And but recently when Ruto went to Tanzania, and I've said some bad stuff. I had some critics to say of Samuel Huluwa Hassan because at first, as you guys know, Magufuli was my favorite president, and I know I even got emotional. I cried a little when he died because I know the Europeans killed him, and no leader has called it out or said, you know what I mean? Because he was missing for a couple of days, and it was just very suspicious, and no leader, and no Tanzanian government even said, officials even said, like, blame the Europeans or anything, and they knew something suspicious was going on. But yeah, but Magufuli said in his place, like, his vice president was Samuel Huluwa Hassan, and he had a lot of trust in her. So naturally, at first, I said, okay, Magufuli is a very smart man, and we've seen what he did and all that. So I really trusted Samuel Huluwa Hassan. But when I seen the video of the Maasai, which is a tribe in Kenya and Tanzania, a famous tribe, the Maasai tribe, when I seen them getting kicked out of their land for reserve games for Arabs in Tanzania, I was like, what the hell is going on? Magufuli would not let that happen. Why is African tribes getting kicked out of their own land that they've had for thousands of years for Arabs, for games for Arabs? I'm like, so I don't know. So that's what made me upset about that. But I got to give credit where credit is due. Samuel Huluwa Hassan, Tanzania and Uganda have the biggest pipeline in Africa, and which is going to bring a lot of jobs to Tanzania and Uganda directly, and then bring other jobs to other African nations indirectly, which is great, right? And we've seen how the Europeans have a lot of pushback against it and want them to stop that. But they refuse, and they say, no, we're going to continue with this. Strong answer, and exactly, they're being firm, and that's how we should do it. And now, so that that oil pipeline project, which is, I believe, 3 point something billion or 5 billion, but between those two numbers. And now I just found out that Tanzania is doing another deal, but a pipeline deal with Kenya for gas. So this is great. Tanzania can become like a gas powerhouse, like a gas and oil, what's it called, independent nations, and literally cooperate with other African nations. And this is how we become independent from the Europeans, and this is how we get our economy striving and our people getting jobs and living very well, educations, hospitals, and this is how we start getting our technology and everything perfect like that. So I gotta give the president of Tanzania big credits for that. Samuel Huluwa Hassan, really appreciate what you're doing. So in Tanzania, you gotta remember, it's right on the Indian Ocean, so that's really good. The Europeans do not like that. So those countries, like the landlocked countries like Uganda, some other landlocked countries, Uganda, Rwanda, countries like that, they don't have to really depend on the West anymore to come take their, do trades with them, because they have Kenya and Tanzania, which both have ports on the Indian Ocean. I believe Tanzania has like 2 ports. Kenya's famous port, Mombasa, we know. So now countries like Kenya and Tanzania can trade with each other, but they can also trade with Uganda, landlocked countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and stuff, because they have the ocean right there, and the trades will be cheaper and all that. And the Europeans are furious about that. So now Tanzania has two major pipeline deals, which is totally independent. The oil pipeline with Uganda, and then just recently this gas pipeline with Kenya. So this is great. This is gonna bring a lot of jobs to Tanzania, and Magufuli would be really proud of this, because he had a lot of major projects in Tanzania. And Samuel Halu Hassan looks like she's following in her predecessor's footsteps, which is an amazing thing. So the oil pipeline with Uganda is going to bring a lot of jobs to Tanzania and Uganda. The gas pipeline is going to bring, also the oil pipeline is also going to bring jobs around neighboring countries around Tanzania and Uganda. But then also the gas pipeline is going to bring a lot of jobs to Kenya and Tanzania, and then countries around those like Uganda, Rwanda, and stuff like that. So this is great news for Africa, great news for Tanzania, great news for East Africa, Uganda, and Kenya. And the thing is, William Ruto has been making this stuff happen. He's been going around these countries and saying we need to work together and be financially independent, because this is how our people get to start living good and not having to run to the US, to Europe, and these places. And this, or like for example, when I did that Kenyan story where that Kenyan woman, our sister, went to Saudi Arabia and was forced to feed dogs. We don't need that happening anymore, with all these jobs creations and the economy booming and thriving perfect like this. So I'm happy about the gas pipeline with Kenya, and let's see what the Europeans have to say about this, because they're going to try to say something slick or bold, something about the environment or all this, or Tanzania is doing 2 pipelines, blah blah blah. So yeah, thanks guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe.